So we originally were talking about, what do we call this this discussion? I've been using the term micro browsers, but does anybody, what does that mean? Is it kind of another meaningless buzzword? Link unfurling is kind of a thing that some industries have talked about. So hence the title, link unfurling engines. But I'm still going to call it micro browsers. So I'm Colin. I'm part of the CTO office at Cloudinary. I spend my time between working on things around our data strategy, focusing on image and video optimizations, as well as some standards work, and really get to play with a lot of cool things and trying to help them make the internet better. I'm also privileged to be one of the co-authors of High Performance Images. We published a few years ago. A pretty awesome book. It's a great doorstop as well. So yeah, link unfurling engines. As I said, I'm going to just go ahead and call it micro browsers, and hopefully we'll get the gist of what we mean through this. So kind of three things I want to hit on today: just what it is, and why do I care about it? How does it work? And then some of the good, bad, and ugly parts of it. And I'm going to give you a fair warning that once you start to see this, you can't unsee it. And I apologize that you will now see where the world is broken in so many ways, and the visual experience when chatting with friends. And you're going to want to be sending emails right away to people saying, like, this is a terrible user experience. You got to fix it. So hopefully we'll get to a better spot. So what is it? What are we talking about? As I mentioned earlier, we've probably heard the term link previews, link unfurling, link expanders, lots of different phrases used, but it's generally that thing like when you're in Slack and you get this little preview, right? You put a URL in, and that pops up ahead of sending off to other folk. And in different platforms, this happens in different ways. If you're in WhatsApp, you might get that preview before you hit send. In Slack and Twitter, you get that preview after you've hit send. There's different ways that this preview pops up. Now, when we look at it, there are a number of different ways that these previews show up. I mean, they could be as simple as showing the favorite icon, which often tends to be a little blurred. You get the title. It can be a little bit more nuanced, where where it can get perhaps multiple images. So here's an example of the wire cutter expanding. You get, there's 3 images all of a sudden, but yet that same URL in a different browser is a single image, and perhaps in WhatsApp you get a small image with a lot more text. So this is the kind of thing that we want to talk about today, is these link expanding. Now, there's a couple different hats that you're gonna have to look at this wearing. One is going to be how do we create this experience? How do we create consistencies? What the visual guidelines we want to embrace? The other side is, what is it that we're doing this in the first place? And for our marketing folks, they're the ones that should start to care about this, and they probably don't really know that this is an area where they should be looking. And why do I say that? Well, they should be looking at it because a lot of marketers, when you're looking at, where does your new users come from? You look at the pie, you can see in Google Analytics perhaps where they're traveling through your website, visiting one thing to the next, buying something. But one of the most important parts is new user capture, getting new users. And if you look at that new user base, you probably see a pie chart like this, where you get some portion of your new users coming from organic searches, so in Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo, some portion of your users that came from a paid search result, keywords, some through social media, Twitter, Facebook, and some through just web page referrals, etc. But not unlikely, you have a giant portion of these new users coming from direct. Now, what are these direct users? Most time, these are users that, well, they just show up. They all of a sudden show up on your website. Now, you could assume that this direct users are people that literally typed in the URL, boom, 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 hit enter, and they just appear on your site. But more often than not, and the data that we've been collecting shows that, 80% plus, seems to be tightly correlated with these experiences where you have a user sending it to a friend in a group chat, to Slack, WhatsApp, and that friend then clicking on that link. I mean, this is probably not uncommon, where you're in a group chat and you say, "Hey, we want to put a team together." You send a link to this this race, ski to sky, where you basically come from skiing, go down through many different kayaking to skate skiing, etc. And you're sending a link to friends, and a little thumbnail pops up, and your friends now click on that. This happens probably many times during the day, where you have these events where, what should I get Johnny for birthday? Thinking about groceries, what I need to pick up. These kind of events happen in many different channels, not just in Slack, but in WhatsApp and others. So it's these moments where we have a conversation talking about your brand that really, it's like gold, really, for most marketers. This ability to give a preview, give an experience when people are talking about you, but it's not in the public forum. And so this is why they should be caring about it. Now, on the one hand, you might get marketers that saying, well, sure, but how much traffic really is this? And this is a hard question, because when you look at your total traffic probably coming to your website, you probably see something like we do, where you've got, like, you break it down by your major browsers. You have Chrome, Safari, and depending on parts of the world, you have different proportions. And you say, well, Chrome, Safari traffic are majority, like 80+%, 90+% of my traffic. But you have to remember that this is the traffic that is the top, that have gone through a full journey. They've gone through many pages and engaged in different ways. But what you're looking for is just the beginning of that pipeline. Because if you dig down and look at the bottom right-hand corner of this breakdown, you start to see way more different devices. Now, some of these are different devices like TVs and different applications, but you'll notice there's things like the Slack image proxy, Facebook catalog. These are the hints for link unfurlers in these different engines. In fact, part of a report that I published earlier this year was the state of the visual media, and one of the things I was looking at was just looking at WhatsApp and Slack traffic. How much visual linking unfurling do we see at Cloudinary during the time of day? And this is organized by time of day. So noon means noon regardless of where you are on the planet. So relative, it's been adjusted for your time zone, and then stacked up. And you can see, just by looking at this, two sides of the equation. One is when people send the link, and then the other side is that same link being consumed by many different viewers. And you can see some of these nice patterns. It's quite interesting, because you see Slack, that blue, where you see it, basically it's a Monday to Fridays where you see most of that traffic. Most people seem to, around that 11 o'clock in the morning, 10 to 11 o'clock, send links around. And there's a second peak near the early afternoon, 3 o'clock-ish. Friday, apparently, that's all we do all day is just share links and visit links. WhatsApp, in contrast, you see it all day long. In fact, it's maybe slightly offset, where you get these humps during meal times, during lunchtime, and then in the evening, secondary humps. So this traffic is there all day long, but it's a small, slow rumble, but it's part of your conversation daily and day in and day out. So let's talk about this, because I think this is where you have an opportunity for this direct traffic. How do you encourage more of that direct traffic, and what can we dig inside that to understand how it works? So how does link unfurling work? How do micro browsers behave? And now it's smart. It starts off with a link being sent across, and you can have a variety of different experiences. The most primitive experience that is pretty common across all the platforms is just using the favicon, favicon.ico. So here's a adult gymnastics class that I take, and they don't have very much other than their favicon that shows up. You can see it's kind of blurred out. You can do a little bit better than that. sorry. You can do better than that by providing different images. But even still, some of those images have different experiences. So when you're looking at this, here's an example from the Wirecutter. You see that there is a single bike on the main page, the hero image, and yet on the other side, you see two bikes. So there's a different image. In the iMessage case, it's very tight text, where in WhatsApp you have a lot more words and a smaller image. Now this is the kind of thing that we want to explore and see how do we manipulate this experience. So in its most primitive state, we're talking about microbrowsers as they visit web pages, but they parse the HTML. They request different parts, request different resources, and they render that relevant preview. So this is kind of the definition we don't work with, because when they parse the page, they're going to give a different view depending on the different engines. So what are the different elements that we can contribute towards this? Now, the one piece that I'll add here is that they're microbrowsers, but they're like a browser, but just not for browsing. They're just there to give you that thumbnail view. And this is the unfortunate case where if you've got a single-use URL and you send it in a chat, because it acts like a browser, and I'll show you an example here, it can be the servers can be fooled that it actually is a browser, because it looks like one, it behaves like one, it just doesn't give the experience to the end user like one. If you look up link unfurling, you'll probably see different definitions of how to manipulate for a different platform. So Slack has published their guidelines. Likewise, you see that with Apple with iMessage. What are the guidelines that they look for? And so there are some published notations around it. So at its most simplest case, when we want to get this kind of expanded service experience, as I mentioned, we start off with that fave icon. That fave icon is that first lowest common denominator that a browser will try to find and consume and show on the web. But if it has something a little bit more, if you want to give it higher resolution fave icon, it will look for your meta tags. So looking for the link or meta tags related to fave icon, and so this is where the first opportunity is to give it a slightly higher resolution. You can see in this example here I really love those clackety clack keyboards. Not so much my coworkers, but I do. This image here is quite a bit higher resolution compared to just using the fave icon, which tends to be quite small and gets stretched out. So that's the first option. Now I will highlight that one of the nuances here is that often I've seen with these different platforms, they'll request all versions of your fave icon. They'll request all 4 fave icons, or possibly 5 if you've got the the default fave icon ICO. So you do run the risk of pushing all flavors of it only for the browser to kind of pick up the last one, or these micro browsers to pick up these last one. So perhaps first thing, if you're going to do this, only have the highest resolution for the browser to pick up. So if we want to move beyond that and we say, well, how do we get this the thumbnail view along the way? And I see, all right. Sorry, I see a chat thing here. When we see that, we set that link around for, hey, it's Smashing Meg's birthday. I don't see that image anywhere in this page. So what's where is that coming from? And if we look in the source code, and see if this works. Yeah, we pop open the source code and we change the formatting. You'll notice that there's actually a bunch of these link icons like before. But then further down, you'll see similar meta tags. Now, the meta tag here has a special PNG image. That OG image is where the browser is actually picking up. Now, this is where it starts to become important, because the browser, this micro browser, is looking for the meta tags related to your preview. It was not going to parse in most cases, it's not going to parse the rest of the HTML markup. It's looking for just that single preview image. So as I was saying, the preview itself starts with looking at the Open Graph content. Now, the Open Graph content that you have, actually, this is the one, your marketing team is probably well familiar with this. They add these meta tags already for marketing campaigns. If they're posting stuff on Twitter or Facebook, they would be using these, annotating these content. And most of these link unfurling engines are going to use the OG image. That's this part down here with a full URL to the image. Now, most platforms also generate the Twitter image source, because we've gone through this evolution in the last 10 years where you've got competing standards. And so most platforms just kind of generate them all, including some ODFs and stuff, things like that. And like I said, but by and large, the priority is for the OG image as the meta tag that's being used for the actual image that's going to be shown as a preview. And this is where you usually get a disconnect, or you can have a different view from what you actually show on the web page. So that's great. But what other things can you do with these images? So one example here is where you have the possibility of showing a video. And this is an example here with Amazon, where when the link is shared, it will actually autoplay the video. And it's got this, it's muted. And if you click on it, it'll go full screen. And usually, like when I share this link around to colleagues or friends, and I say, hey, take a look at this link preview. This is a micro browser. I usually lose them for about 3 minutes while they just watch the preview, this video, as it's going on. How is that done? Well, it's actually pretty simple. There's other Open Graph elements, OG video with the URL, and you can provide that URL itself. And that URL, I'm going to pause. I think it's the video that. So Open Graph video, you can just throw it in a tag. Now, there's a couple of different nuances when it comes to adding video. It doesn't apply to all platforms. By and large, it's only iMessage that actually looks for this tag. And when it does, it's just going to auto play. If it does find a progressive, it will use it to autoplay. But if it's a HLS or dash, like our streaming video, it will require the user to press play through that. There's other things that we can do with different ways we can put this content in there. For instance, HEIF image formats, which is only available in iOS ecosystem. You can't use it on the web, but actually you can put a HEIF image if it's an iOS-based device. In fact, it works in WhatsApp, it works in iMessage, but it doesn't work outside of the iOS ecosystem. So you get some of these different opportunities where you have opportunity to show video or different image formats that can give you, wide gamut or higher bit depth experiences. Likewise, you can use animated GIFs in some cases, but this is the case here, the animated PNG. WhatsApp doesn't do that well when it just shows you a single frame. So these are some of the inconsistencies that we have, but there are other things that come about with this. Now, when I was looking at the video example, and this is the the Amazon link, I was originally looking for that HTML markup. I was like, well, where did it pick up that video from? Because I don't see it listed in the meta tags. As it turns out, most micro browsers will actually send a different user agent, and most of them have actually started to adopt the Facebook external hit or Facebot or Twitterbot, using these extra keywords to try to trick the server, the website that they're talking to actually give them that micro data that they'll need to expand so they can get from the preview. So that same web page, if I add this as my user agent, and this is the one from iMessage, and if you use the some APIs that will do the same link unfurling, it will use the same one, and I'll highlight that it's also a fixed version. This has been fixed since iOS 11. It's still the same way in iOS 12 and iOS 13. So you can't actually tell which version of the iMessenger it's using, but it all pretends to be Facebook external. So if I make the same request with that user agent, I get actually different markup, and you can see it here. that now I get all this extra open graph markup. So some web pages actually behave differently when the user agent has these extra tags in them. And so a lot of the platforms have done that in some way or another, trying to tease out this extra data. This is one of the techniques that you can use to detect whether it's a micro browser or not. I mean, some will fall into the camp of they will use whatever name they like, but many of them will use the keywords of Facebook and Twitter to pretend that they are like those platforms, even though it's a private chat, a group chat. So that gives you the user agent. So just to summarize this part, how they work, they don't use standard HTML markup. They look for just the microdata. Now, I didn't highlight this, but I'll say it now, that the other curious piece is that they don't run JavaScript or set cookies or even use CSS, which means that you have other limitations. Think of these as running in a private sandbox. The platforms have gone to great lengths to try to protect the user from people listening in on those conversations. And that's why they use a fixed user agent. If you try setting cookies, they won't be preserved or honored. You can't run any JavaScript, so your Google Analytics will be completely useless. And that's why they aren't going to show up in any of your Google Analytics reports. Along with that, there's inconsistencies or opportunities, if you will, for different image formats and image or video formats, depending on the platform. And where the platforms do support video, usually there is a distinction between progressive video and streaming video, where streaming videos still require the user to press play before it starts to automatically go through. So let's look at a couple examples, some good, some bad, and some unfortunately terrible. I already showed you this example here with the IEEE. It's just giving you they have no metadata provided, but they do have the fave icon. And this is usually the case for a lot of scenarios where the marketing teams have not been involved in promoting this this page or this article or this product, because the open graph content or the Twitter markup, those came from marketing pushes for Twitter and Facebook. And so if the marketing team isn't actually sending that content out, it's often ignored. And so that's why you don't see anything more interesting other than the standard HTML title and the standard fave icon. We saw this one already where we get a little bit better. But let's look at some of the other examples. So here's Google Hangouts. Let's count the hair dryers in this example here. We've got just the title and the URL, actually the URL twice, and a crop down. The top and bottom has been cut out to make it a bit more landscape. The same one in Facebook Messenger, and it's selected actually the same image, but this time it's cropped in more letterbox and provided the same kind of title. Now, in contrast, you've got WhatsApp. We've got actually a lot more text being spent out here. Now, interestingly, compare this with the keyboard click one. When you've got a lot more text, it's actually squeezing out that size of image. Scott, you want to mute for a second?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, you get the image actually starts to shrink if you've got a lot more prose in that description, a lot more words. But in contrast, it's a lot bigger if you've less words. Same one here. I think this is whatever the replacement to Hangouts is these days. Now this one provides some of that prose, that description text, as well as the title. And this is actually interesting because it's using the open graph title and the HTML markup title, as well as a single image that it is trying to fill into the content. But you do have some other anomalies. Not all platforms are made equal. If you send this on Messenger and WhatsApp, you might see the ring. But if you send it through the stock Samsung SMS client, you get an odd box. And this is where some of these inconsistencies come up. And this is a case here where the Twitter URL is being used in preference over the open graph. And so because they're different images, you get this wonky experience where it should have been a ring, where it's not a ring anymore. All right. Yeah, my video isn't showing right now. Scott turned it off, hoping to catch up with the. We had some weird internet video. You want to try it again, actually, Scott? Because I don't think I've got any more videos playing, so it should
Okay, 1 second here.
try that up again. All right. Well, start my video. Yay! There, I'm back. I'm back. So, so one thing we should recognize as a meta point is that the layout will be different depending on the platforms, and they're all different. Now, the one side of you might say, well, shouldn't we build standards that define how the layout and markup should be done? I'm probably going to bias to the other side, which says that we should probably allow the meta tags, as long as we agree on the standards of the meta tags, let the browsers, these micro browsers, figure out for themselves how to do layout. And one of the main reasons for that is because we want to enable the preservation of the privacy. We don't want to force browsers to become overly complicated, and by doing so, introduce JavaScript or CSS, and then having different exploits. By focusing on just simple mechanics, we can provide, let the platforms decide what's the best way to present this content. Because if you're using it in a desktop app, perhaps a crop that is a little bit more widescreen is preferable versus narrow, which does bring some implications for yourself as you're building some of this content, knowing that you're going to need some different crop zone safeties where you may not want to put important details too far to the margins, either up and down or left and right. Another couple examples, though. I showed you the video with the door opener. Now, this is the same video, same link sent in Facebook Messenger. You'll see that I've got the really long URL. I've got a lots of words version of the summary, and the image that's shown here is interesting. I mean, they've got a little bit, some branding, but it's just a thumbnail. And this is actually the first image in the carousel of images on the left-hand side. That same link in WhatsApp doesn't show anything. And this is now an example where the WhatsApp engine doesn't use the Facebook or Twitter bot annotations in their user agent. They just use the WhatsApp user agent, and so they don't get any of this extra microdata. So what they end up falling back to is the standard SEO meta tags, the title and whatnot. And when you get those meta tags, you get a dense block of prose in your face. Yay. So one thing I would highlight is use less words. The last thing you want is these dense blocks of prose sitting in front of that user. You want to give them a lot less to look at, because this is filled with SEO buzzwords mixed with a lot of soup. Users aren't going to consume that, let alone it's just going to scroll by, particularly if they're in a if you're sending links around in a group chat and you come out of the grocery store and all of a sudden there's 50 messages, if it's a dense block of prose in that link preview, users are likely going to just continue on and move on. So given that, we also highlight that they have different goals, that these different platforms sometimes have different purposes. And in that, we have this tension between where you have this micro data that was intended for the marketing team, and the marketing for Facebook and Twitter, they're focused around getting eyeballs in. So when you're scrolling through, they want something that's a little flashy and draw your attention. And so in this case, it's not uncommon to see art like this that doesn't really tell a story of what it is I'm clicking through, but it's just huzzah. It's the same hero image that they have at the top of their link. Sometimes they're a little bit more associative. Okay, why isn't the sky blue? Makes this a nice thumbnail. But if you're a Prince of Persia fan and you got the note about 30th anniversary, and you share that link to friends, this is the preview that you would have received. Now, I don't know about you. If somebody texted me and this is the link preview, the first question I'd send back to them is, has your account been hacked? So we have to be concerned with the previews that we're sending, because they may not actually send the right message, but because the context is slightly different, in this case, these previews were meant for inside of the Facebook ecosystem, where you put the person's preview, their profile, and not necessarily meant for peer-to-peer conversations. Skip this. A couple other examples here. Here we have, hoping to bypass the blog post here. Now, this is where they've seen some examples where you see different content. Now, it might look like the same content with the person with the suit talking about how they charge $18,000 for just building a static HTML page, but in reality, they actually created a customized view that just overlaid the $18,000. And this is trying to tell a story with just that image, but yet there's some similarities. So they've used different Open Graph images to create a different view of it, different summary of that same page. I love this one. This is the Kick Festival, where you can see like a lot of actually nuances being portrayed here. Like they've got the dates of the film festival, they've got their branding, and they've got an evocative view or story of the film festival summarized in this single image. Actually, Nielsen Group does this for most of their research papers too, where they have their thumbnail view is actually their thesis statement or their summary view, statement. It has nothing to do, like it's not actually used anywhere in their content, where a lot of other places will use hero images. They've given you just the summary, the big highlights of an idea that you need to pass along, and boom, right there. And the advantage of doing this is that you have the opportunity to tell a full story about what it is the user's going to click through. Where in the Facebook and Twitter mode, you might actually be trying to grab attention because it's more akin to advertisement. When you're in the mode of a personal conversation, you actually want to give more information. You don't want to tease it. You don't want to be saying you'll never believe what happened next. You actually want to say, Colin slipped on a banana. You want to give the punchline away in these cases. So you want to use these thumbnails as an opportunity to give your summary, your elevator pitch, and also tell your story and tell it in a very succinct way. And as I mentioned, you've got these differences of I'll call it push marketing, where it's Twitter and Facebook, versus that pull marketing. Now, this is where we start to see some where we can possibly go with this, and give the example here of the kind of Twitter campaign that I'm talking about, nice and flashy, whereas if you don't have any content, you can get this just a single thumbnail. But if you've got some content, you can tell that shoe. But if we can do a little bit better than that, here's the kind of possibilities that we can present. Imagine the ability to say, here's the Adidas shoe. I'm still looking for shoes for my kids. And I want to say, oh, I found this sneaker here, send it off to my wife to say, yeah, we should get this one. Now, this gives me a compelling motivation of like, oh, it's available in different colors, and here's the rating. Oh, and there's only 3 left in stock. Now, this is, you can do this if you're consciously focused on telling a unique story inside of that preview, and to say, I'm going to add different metadata from my stock and inventory, and compose a unique view of this content. So at the end of the day, we want to be able to identify our direct traffic, and we want to give that direct traffic, reasons to click through. We don't want people to asking questions like, well, why are you sending this link? Were you hacked? You want to give them, the full summary view. But the obvious question you're going to ask is, well, how do we measure that engagement? How do we measure the click through? And this is where it gets challenging, because it's really hard. The best that you're going to be able to do is, for some platforms where each client makes a request and does the link unfurling, by giving them a unique URL that for the image, you'll be able to tell that this image was requested by a micro browser doing link unfurling versus that URL in the hero image. So you want to make sure there are actually 2 different URLs, one used in the unfurl and one used by the actual page, the hero image. And if by doing that, you'll at the very least be able to count the impressions, like how often was this requested. Now, some of the nuances start to break down in here because some platforms, particularly Facebook Messenger and some parts of Slack, will use a centralized proxy where it's not the actual client that's making the request, but it's their central servers making the request on behalf of the client. So then they parse the content, cache it, and then send it off to 10, 100, 1,000 end users, and you won't see that. So you do also need to make the association of that. Some clients, if you see one view, it probably means maybe 100 impressions on the other side. And it's from this that you're going to want to do some correlation of that direct traffic. How often do I see this unique URL that's not the hero image and correlate that with beginning of journey from my direct traffic? When you can see that correlation, you won't know that it was shared at this time and then he clicked on it 2 hours later, but you'll be able to find out what was really resonating with people at that time. And this is actually one of those, I think, an opportunity for us to look deeper and to get deeper into this in the near future is to start to compare, where are we optimizing our SEO traffic? We focus around certain keywords, we focus around different search results, and are those search results where we're sitting in the top 5, 10, do they match what people are actually talking about in private conversations? And we can only do that when we start to look at these hero image impression counts. And we say, does our top results match? Because perhaps part of the ecosystem that we're talking to, another part is actually really popular to start the journey, that this link, this blog post, this product is resonating with a demographic that you hadn't expected. This mom's group is really looking for back to school shopping, shoes, and they found that this sneaker is actually most durable, and they send it, along to their friends. Those are valuable brand insights. So just to kind of summarize here, and I really want to emphasize, this is really the beginning of the story, that a lot of this thinking about microbrowsers, for myself at least, is still very early days. I've done a lot of investigation, experimentation, but I think there's a lot more, a lot deeper that we can go into this to understand, what are the different nuances. But for now, key things I would definitely recommend is we need to think about these open graph image tags as more than just for our marketing team, more than just for Facebook and Twitter. It's part of our core application. And so we need to annotate every part, every entrance point that we have for our applications, websites, that with microdata. And we have this opportunity to tell a compelling story. So if we're not going to do anything, we're going to do one thing, at least have a good favorite icon. Less than that, at least use your hero image, your most dominant image, and put that as your open graph. And give it a unique URL so you can track the distinction between, is this the image of regular browser or is this the preview browsers, the micro browsers? Recognize that there might be cropping. Usually it's to move it to square or to some flavor of it. So usually it's cut, the left and right are cut, but every once in a while you do see top and bottom. And in some cases where you'll see composite, if you have more than one image listed as open graph images, those will get tiled, and you see that in different cases. So you need to be flexible with the layout of the details you might be adding to that image. We didn't get into this, but performance does matter. And there's a number of things that are curious about many of these micro browsers and the way that they load. They don't get the benefits that standard browsers have with the way that they do connection pools and they do parallel threads and all the great stuff. Most of these micro browsers are just using OS functions in this URL session or HTTP URL client. And they're just doing very rudimentary gets on the internet and then regexes of parsing it, which means that a lot of times these resources are requested in serial. They're not done in parallel. And it also means that you get multiple requests. So you get all 5 fav icons plus your images and then that video, and the only thing that's actually shown is the video. But definitely more experimentation needs to be done in this domain of how does the link unfurling performance, how does it can be tweaked and tuned so you don't waste users' bandwidth and you get the right experience as fast as possible. For your advanced uses, video has got some great opportunities here, particularly if you do things like bonding the transcript in a nice thumbnail preview. You can tell your product, you can sell the story in a nice, crisp way that you can't do as easily in markup. And my personal pet peeve is use less words, of course, shorter titles, less descriptions. Don't let the SEO gods demand that you put in all of your buzzwords. Move it tight, keep it tight, make it easy to be scanned by humans because it's in a group chat and it's going to go up above the fold after that. So with that, that's what I wanted to share with you today. I apologize for some of the glitchy video, but hopefully you caught most of it. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Colin. That was very informative. As I mentioned, I've had questions about microbrowsers in general, especially with some performance things that I've had problems with, and like anything with fine tuning, and sometimes there's a hack to kind of get around any roadblocks that you run into. But I do have a couple of questions before I hand it over to Vitaly, because he always has questions. So I think Open Graph came out in almost 10 years ago, around, I think, like 2010.
Yeah.
Do you think
this is old ideas? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it was ever their intention that it was going to be this widely adopted? From my understanding, it was originally just so people could share content on Facebook and it would look pretty.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think it was ever envisioned for this purpose, and nor was HTML markup envisioned to be full Gmail applications. I think this is the beauty of the web, where you do get this this evolution. And that's where the mindset it needs to change within our own companies, right? That this is not a marketing function exclusively, not just for Facebook and Twitter, but it's actually for the human dialogue. So there are challenges that I think we need to sort out as an industry. Open Graph meta tags are verbose. You can't do things like responsive. So there's outstanding questions where you now start expanding the platforms that are going to consume it.
Do you think there'll become some sort of standard that would, push Open Graph and Twitter tags to the side one day?
There is one that's, I can't remember the name of it off the top. There was one proposed in the W3C to kind of be a superset. But at this point, it feels like the Open Graph syntax is the most prevalent. It's just out there. We know how to use it. It's well documented. It's been there for 10 years. And so our marketing teammates, they know how to do it, right? It's part of their standard wheelhouse. So if anything, we'll see evolution, but it'll be years away before we see those land. In the meantime, we have platforms today consuming content and trying to give a great visual experience. So we can help create that best visual experience by giving it the right level of detail.
I like the Micro Machines reference, by the way. I'm not sure if there's a lot of people old enough to get that. We do have a couple of questions from the attendees. So Pawan, hello Pawan. Pawan's been attending these since the very beginning. So are there any testing sites extensions where you can see how different microbrowsers on different platforms will render the preview?
So yes and no. The challenge is that most of these micro browsers are native apps. They are iMessage and WhatsApp and WeChat and Tumblr, and you name the platform, and they're all for-purpose things, right? WhatsApp is a little different. Well, actually, WhatsApp and Slack, they do offer web views, web version of it that behaves similar to, but what I've found is that they actually behave completely different. They do the crawling. For instance, the web version of Slack uses a centralized server to do the relaying, whereas if you're using a mobile client, it will go and do the unfurling by itself. With WhatsApp, you have the web client and the native client will do the unfurling, but they use different user agents and they have different characteristics. So this is just evidence that different teams are accomplishing the goals, even the same platform, but in different ways, which comes back to how do I test it? I can maybe test the web version, like maybe in web platform tests or web page tests or things like that. But it doesn't help you test the native app, Hangouts, or and those other platforms. So I'm struggling with this myself, other than getting a robot that can do the clicking and testing and doing some network
Yeah.
spoofing. It's a hard domain to do good testing, other than just doing one-off screen caps and things like that. So
Yeah, it
stay
would be
tuned.
interesting. It would be interesting to see if some of the other testing platforms like Browser Stack or anything like that would adopt that one day. That'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see. Sylvester asks, do you have a list of popular or preferred URL shorteners that you use to view the analytics and how to recognize them in analytics?
So, I think that, there's a lot of different URL shorteners. The key, there's two parts of this that you need to kind of recognize. One is there's the URL shortener for the actual web page, which will give you some insights in that the web page was crawled, and whether it's Chrome or somebody else. But what you really want is the nuance of, is the image or video, is it expanded? Is it really a preview, or is it just some other crawler that's out there trying to see where the internet is? And is it so that's where I think if you're going to do URL shorteners as a way to create a unique URL, do that also on the image, the OG image or the OG video. But I'm not aware, candidly, I'm not aware of any URL shortener that is giving the insights to these applications, because again, most of them are all focused on the big movers, the Safari, the Chrome, the Edge browsers, Firefox. Like they aren't focused on the small guys, and this shows up as small volume of traffic, but that's because it's the first impression, right? It's not the second and third and fourth page. And so by volume, they show up as small, but by value, they should be a lot larger. So I'm hoping that perhaps with this kind of talk and others, that we'll start to create, insight and focus on these platforms, to get a little bit more detail. I think you're muted.
Yeah, I think
I'll try to read.
Yeah.
That mute button's going to kill me today. Shadib was asking, is there a specific way to send these images directly to all platforms using just one OG tag instead of many?
Well, you are forced to use one OG tag, and so you have two choices. One is to do some user agent sniffing and try to anticipate how is it going to crop it, how is it going to work on it. The couple things that I would do, if you're gonna annotate, put your Open Graph markup ahead of your fave icons and ahead of your Twitter image, because it seems to be that most of them will bias to using that resource first, if it even has a collection. But if you do it the other way around, because I get the sense that a lot of these engines are actually just parsing it serially, like character by character, and it hits the fave icons first and says, okay, go get that. Oh, I parsed some more, I found the Twitter. Oh, I parsed some more, and I actually wanted the Open Graph, and it will bias to that. So if you put the Open Graph first, that's the one that most of these platforms seem to prefer, if you stack rank the priorities. So do one of those up front, and kind of hope for, work on the crop zones. Really, if you think about it, just making sure that the square crop, like a dumb square crop, works out. So you want to make sure your letterbox spacing is might have some important information, but if it is cut out, that you won't be losing too much of the story that you're trying to tell. You're muted again. And my lip reading skills are terrible.
It's very early here still. That's my only excuse. Drew says, great presentation. He loves the Micro Machines reference as well. He's asking if you could quickly revisit how you were viewing the source and change the user agent to see how different sites were setting these up.
So let me just pop out of here. And, so if I just go into, let's load Smashing Mag here. So it really is you load the page, open up in your Chrome developer tools, and if they are not trying to play the user agent game, then you're going to see, let's move some of these Zoom windows around. Then you're going to see the actual markup. And so what I look for, if you just do this, press a little curly brace to make it a little easier to find, just look for the OG image, right? And so that's where you see the properties that are being used, the OG image. Now, there are annotations that you can put on an actual image tag. I find that those are very inconsistent in the actual pickup. So you can annotate OG image on like image source equals and the usual stuff. I wouldn't trust it to be picked up. This is probably the most reliable mechanism. So in this case here, you see the URL, and you've got a unique URL because it's got that little birthday cake. In the case that I had with, close this, with Amazon, that same URL, this image here, when I pull up and do the source code on it, you're not going to see that. You're going to have a hard time finding any of that markup. See if I can find it here, the meta tag. You can see they only have the meta description, title, and keyword, like the classic SEO tags. Now, I've got it set up in my browser. I just edited the user agent, so I changed it to be the same user agent that iMessage uses. Basically, it adds Twitter bot and Facebook bot as different words inside the user agent. If I refresh the same page, all of a sudden I get different markup coming out. It looks the same, renders the same, but in the actual tag content, let's make this pretty. Come on. You can see the OG image. I now get OG image and OG video. And this is where you see this image right here. That's the one that's default. And I've got this video on the side, the bottom one here. That's what they're using for their video tag, and that's what iMessage will use to actually render the page or show on the preview. Make sense?
Thank you, Colin. Shadipo is also asking if URL is shortened, will it still give the same video / thumbnail? I think for the most part they do.
Yeah, so this is where some of the weirdnesses come in. I briefly showed you that one example with Nike where the shoe just gave not even a fave icon. Turns out, as I dug into that one, that's a geo redirector at play. Where I was, they did a geo redirect to a European storefront, which then redirected somewhere else. And eventually the browser said, I'm aborting. I didn't get any actual HTML markup. Whereas I did the same URL when I was back home in Canada. It works all of a sudden. I get a nice preview. So URL shorteners and any kind of geo redirect storefronts, those can actually play havoc to the content because these are not real browsers. They might chase redirects, but you're going to cross your fingers. They're accidental browsers in that way.
Okay, that makes sense. And Shadipo has one last question, then Drew has a question, and then we'll hand it over to Vitaly.
Sure.
Playing videos on browsers are only supported by the iOS. Playing videos on the browsers are only supported by the iOS, to be precise, iMessage. How long will this take before it comes to Android devices?
What I'm seeing right now is it's a catch-up race everywhere, where the only evidence that I've seen in my experimentation is in iOS where they're using the video tag. But I would not be surprised if, not too far in the future, the different SMS clients on the Android platforms or the Google Hangouts or Hangouts Chat, whatever it's called now, that these different platforms will start to mimic the same experience. Because I have to tell you, like every time that I've shared a link with that video, with a video on it, I really do lose the person I'm talking to while they just watch that video. It is a really compelling way to tell your story, to give a quick elevator pitch, a 10-second pitch of your product. So different dimension than your whole web page. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see that quickly in the next few months, kind of thing. But I've got no insight, so I don't know.
For sure. Drew has a question here. Within a company, who do you envision being responsible for setting all of this up? Marketing, development, and then I can say I worked in the agency world for many years, and it was a combination of marketing for setting up all the tracking tags and everything, and then handing that over to developers to implement in the code. So, what is your...
Yeah, like I think this is a game right now, a game of 1, 2, 3, not it, where the marketing folks, the ones who are the ones doing this because it was for marketing purpose, marketing campaigns. I think this is where, as front-end developers and front-end designers or product owners, we need to take ownership of this and start putting requirements around it, because I think there's a greater opportunity than just trying to create advertisement, but create compelling. And I go back to this example, like this is not a real example. This is completely fictitious that I mocked up myself, but of that running shoe, where you have the opportunity to give more detail, right? This is the opportunity that you could do with your product, of give inventory. If you're using some form of geo to country resolution, say, oh, this is the markup for a person in Canada, the United States, and in Germany, whatever. Here's the relative inventory. Here's the other color options and the rating. Like, this is an opportunity for you to create the compelling event. Why do you want to come in? Instead of just giving them a bland, yeah, this is a shoe page. Tell them about what they're clicking in, why they're doing it. Because I think there's also a healthy level of skepticism when it comes to link unfurling. Because how many times have you got an unsolicited text, right? You don't want to be confused with the unsolicited text. You don't want to be confused for somebody hacking your friend's account. So you need to give enough information that is relevant, that gives some credibility. It's credible that your friend sent it to you, but you also need to match the credibility with your preview. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So thank you very much for that. So I'm going to hand this over to Vitaly in a second here because he has some questions of his own. But before I do that, because I have to leave right away, I just wanted to thank all the attendees for joining today. Thank you, Colin, from myself. And next Tuesday at 4 p.m. GMT, we are doing our 5th installment of our Inspired By series with Andy Clark. So if you've been following them, it's been a very interesting series so far. We'll provide working examples of files to go along with the webinar. So on that note, thanks again, everybody. Goodbye, Colin. Goodbye, Vitaly.
I'm sticking around to answer some questions, though.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much, Scott. I hope it's not too loud over here, is it?
No, it's pretty good.
No, it's okay. So thank you so much, Colin, for the wonderful introduction. Actually, when I was listening to all those little insights that you had to share, it kind of struck me that I felt in many ways that the micro browsers or link unfurling engines, whatever you want to call them, because they're so constrained, on some level, they remind me of email as a medium. Because email is also so constrained, have access to JavaScript, you have very limited CSS support and all of that. But I think that there are tons of opportunities, right? So if you think about, where this lives, there's like the link unfurling lives, at least in a very private medium, where somebody's sending a very private message to somebody else. And this is where you have a real opportunity to actually bring in some value when somebody actually wants to, buy something and so on. So I'm wondering at this point, what would be some of the most creative link unfurling you've seen so far? Like some of those really well done, or the craziest one that you would think, wow, I would never think it's possible.
Yeah, so sadly, I haven't. Everybody seems to do the boring, and that's where I think we're at. Is that most people use, they know they have to have a hero image, so they use something, but they don't do more than that. The closest thing that gave me the double take was the video element. I think that was probably the most. I didn't know that this was possible. And candidly, I don't know if Amazon intended it that way. I don't think they knew it was possible. I think that's serendipitous. So I really hope that there will be some crazy cool ways that we can do some personalization. Unlike email, when you do an email campaign and you press send and then you go, oh crap, I put the wrong release date. I put, I've never sent an imperfect email, but
Of course, you didn't.
theoretically,
Of course.
hypothetically, uh, you know, unlike email, you do have the opportunity to control your source code. So when the person actually does view the link unfurling, you can doctor and fix it up. You can adjust it over time and release new versions, and you'll get a better experience. So I think there's opportunities when it comes to you think of better text. I think better descriptions, and thinking about our accessibility side. If our text and our descriptions are just buzzwords, they're not helping anybody. Not people who are sighted and people who are not sighted. Like they're not helping anybody. So you can do better at describing your product more succinctly. I think that there's opportunities when it comes to providing better geo not tracking kind of geo, but just be able to say like this is the store inventory, or this is what the same news article, the what might be important to you in Europe versus in the UK around Brexit. The same news article might have a slightly
it's
different.
more informational, right? It's not like a promotional where somebody is just pushing advertising to you. It's like somebody decides actively to share a piece of information with you, and so you kind of tend to, as an owner of that site or that store, you kind of end up presenting it in the nicest possible way to encourage people to buy, to click, and and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, maybe just two more questions and then I'll let you go because I know you've been sitting here all alone in your office. What about Instagram? Would you say Instagram link unfurling in messages reminds you of WhatsApp or Facebook, or is it entirely different?
So yeah, Instagram's a funny beast. Like, so I do see link unfurling happen on Instagram. Instagram, well, it follows the Facebook pattern where they use a centralized server for the request, and then it's brought in. So again, if you see one link unfurl from an Instagram platform, it's probably more than one. It's 10, 100. And on that point, I think there might be some interesting things we could do about caching. But that aside, the Instagram, I'm not sure how much chat traffic, like group chats or personal chats, happen on Instagram other than sharing other Instagram posts. So I think that there's this weird nexus of platforms that are maybe not necessarily chat platforms, but they have some of these odd characteristics where they do have some, but not as much. Versus we think of WhatsApp and Slack as chat platforms. We see some traffic from TikTok, from which I think some of the other more
Line,
nuanced.
maybe? Line is, seems
I
to
have to go
be
look at
a
that
big
one.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I would love anybody who's got other platforms. There's a lot out there, so need to do more experimentation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. And maybe just a final one. Do we get any access of, any information about what rules are being followed by those link unfurling engines to do anything? Or is there something like in process or anything, like some sort of API that might be opened up? Or do you think we should not be waiting for this and just hope for the best?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see anything like this because I think, if I were to look at it from WhatsApp's perspective or Slack or Apple's and iMessage, they want to guard the privacy of their users. They're having a private chat and they don't want to compromise that private chat. And so it's on one side, the images that are videos that might be unfurled are hints. They are intentionally trying to be obfuscated. So the only thing you can do is do the correlation. I don't expect them to provide other views on it. But what I would suggest is at the very least, you should be testing. This should be part of your QA process of sending these links to yourself in WhatsApp and Slack and in different platforms, just to see how does it look, and are there things that you need to, some obvious gotchas in the layout or how many words, in this translation, etc.
Okay. Well, I think I have way more questions that I need to ask, I guess. But thank you so much, Colin, for your time and for being so helpful and sharing all of that. I think it's really interesting to kind of bring in more spotlight on the topics that are not discovered or not really discussed, I would say. So, dear members, I guess you probably remember we also have covered the email, the beauty of HTML email recently. And looking from now on, we also want to explore some other topics that people don't speak about. One of them is localization, internationalization. We also had a webinar on that already, but we need to dive a little bit more in that. So this is all of that is on the agenda. If you have some ideas or anything, again, sorry for being so loud here. Have any ideas or anything, please post them on Slack and we'll be happy to bring it up and find speakers who might be of interest for that topic. On that note, again, huge thanks to everybody for joining and who'll be watching us later. Huge thanks to Colin for sharing and collecting all the wonderful snippets of information in the first session I've ever heard of link unfurling engines. And I hope to hear more from you soon as well about that. And actually other things as well, performance, like whatever floats your boat.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks everyone for joining and see you next time.
Cheers.